Good afternoon and welcome to AXA Coral Live. If you didn't know that we were actually at a marine research institute with air being let off, you do now. It's all working and it's fantastic to be here. And that's why coming to this part of the Caribbean is so special. My name's Jamie from Encountering You. We have Ellie behind the camera, and very shortly we'll introduce you to Valerie, who is our special guest today. But just to give you an idea of where we are, we're on an island called Curacao. That's in the southern Caribbean, and it's a collection of islands in the Netherlands Antilles. You have Aruba, Bonaire and Curacao, and that's just above the coast of Venezuela. And where we are is a research station, a field research station, and called Carmarby. And what's really great is it provides a home from home for visiting scientists from around the world to come and study the coral ecosystem. And it's not just coral, it could be fish species, it could be sponges, it could be how the whole habitat works together, and some of the tiny or even invisible parts, sugars or microbiology that make up this wonderful, wonderful place. Now, a field research station has a couple of different facets. It has the research station angle. It has the wet labs, the dry labs. There's places where scientists can come back and analyze their samples or test experiments or process their data. And then it's got the field side. And we call it the field, the big outdoors. It doesn't have to be an actual field. Here it's the coral reef. And just out here, beautiful Elkhorn corals around the corner, some amazing brain corals actually just growing on the stands for the jetty here. And what that means is that as a researcher, as you heard just behind us, you can just walk down from your office, get your scuba gear ready, and then go off and do your work underwater. So really a great collection of the science support both on land and then the ability to get into the great outdoors to study the coral reef here. Now, sorry, I've just breathed in a whole load of sunscreen. It is a baking hot day here. I'm just going to reach around the side of this tent to get myself a drink of water. And one of the lovely things about doing Coral Live is that we are in the tropics on the wonderful tropical reef. One of the hard things is that we are in the tropics on the wonderful coral reef. And it's great to have Valerie. Valerie, welcome. And thank you so much for coming back, Dr Valerie Chamberland. And we're going to go talk about your life. I know you've got some amazing things here and talk about your career. But before we start, let's just say hello to some of those schools who are watching. So we have schools from Australia, Lithuania, Colombia, the United States, Switzerland and Belize who are joining us today. So that's a really fantastic mix. It's a big hello to the students at St John's College in Belize. So hi all you guys. Hi students of Swan River School who are watching from the US. So really lovely to have you with us. We've got Union Point Academy, and fantastic to have, I think that's in Kentucky, so fantastic to have them with us. Hello. And then a big shout out to the students of INEM Santiago Perez in Colombia. I think that's in Bogota, so really wonderful to have you with us. And what we're going to do today, I know you've got these amazing things and I'm really curious to see them shortly. So we'll have a look at that, talk a little bit about how you got into your career and what brought you to Carmarby and Curacao in the first place. Then we've got an opportunity to go through the questions that have been submitted in advance to come up on the live chat. And when we're going through them, I think there's a few things for those students who are watching to think about. How do you increase your knowledge through the session about the coral habitat and its importance? How do you think about some of the science skills involved in researching the reef? How can we learn from your career and you as a role model for the next generation of coral scientists? And lastly, how we think about conserving the reef for future generations. So hopefully, as you're working through this and watching, those are a few things to have a think about. But Valerie, you're here, you've been based here, you said for 10 years. How this is a pretty amazing job. How did you end up here?
It was, you know, like a chain of life decisions that eventually altogether brought me here. I was studying at different universities. I'm from Canada, so I was trying to get closer and closer to tropical places to study corals. And eventually I came to Curacao for a small internship, which was supposed to last 8 months, and then here I am 10 years later.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And you focus on a particular study here. You're looking at what would be called coral restoration. Would that be the right term for it?
Yeah, so I'm a research scientist and I do research on coral reproduction. And by working on reproduction, we produce new coral babies that we use for restoration. So you make babies to help the reef.
Coral babies?
Yeah.
Amazing. And I think you might have...
We have some baby corals.
We have some baby corals. Oh, how amazing. So I'll let you get set up. For me, it's just incredible that, you know, these amazing structures that you can see from space are made up of what, the size of a pinhead?
Yeah.
These
That's
tiny
how they
animals.
start.
That's how they
small they start, yeah.
Amazing. Should we see what we can see?
Yes, so in order to be able to see them, because they're so small,
yes.
We have about 2 to 3 weeks old baby corals, and we need a microscope to see them, otherwise they're too small to look at with the naked eye. So I brought out pretty much the lab from the equipment from the lab to the pier, so we can have a look. So we have a microscope.
Towels and
yeah, it's a little bit too hot for the microscope now, so we're kind of protecting it a little bit. But underneath here we have a camera that is recording what you would see through the microscope, and then it shows, it displays it on my computer. So what you have here on the computer screen is what you would see through the microscope.
So we're going to bend round. I'll let you.
And then we have, if you look carefully, there are little whitish rounds or dots on the screen.
Okay.
And those are tiny single baby coral polyps. And this is a species we've actually worked for the first time, at least to that stage here. So what you can see is you'll have like a little rounded edge, which is the coral skeleton, which is slowly being formed.
Yep.
In the middle, you see a bit more of a little kind of a dot. That's the mouth. Because corals can actually eat. They have a mouth.
Really? Okay.
And eventually, if they're not too shy, they should take their tentacles out. I think they might be a little warm. But when they're happy, the tentacles are coming
tentacles.
out.
And why do they have these tentacles?
They can use their tentacles to catch food in the water.
Okay. And so, what I mean, is this tiny sort of like planktony, tiny or eggs or larvae of?
They can grab a little plankton. It can be like super tiny shrimps. It can be particles. It can be so they can basically hunt.
There we go. So luckily they're quite small. Otherwise, it sounds quite a frightening proposition. And what happens after you've got them? Do they stay this size, or what happens to them? After, I mean, this is how many weeks old were these guys?
This is about 2 to 3 weeks.
2 to 3 weeks. Okay.
When these coral polyps are happy and healthy, then they will start growing into bigger sizes, and eventually they copy themselves. They make a second polyp.
That sounds like a science fiction film.
Yeah. So they divide in 2 polyps, then those 2 polyps divide in more, and then they form what we call a colony of multiple polyps that live together.
Oh wow. And I mean, I think we've got an example of a slightly more grown up. Is it happy in the heat? Should we see what we can?
We can see what we can.
See what we can see.
But the first thing to notice, because there will be a big difference between these guys and the next one, is that these, as you can see, are completely white and kind of transparent. And that's because they haven't acquired their symbiotic algae yet.
So this is actually full color. It's not this. It's black and white that we can't see.
No, that's what they look like. They're completely white and transparent. You can almost see through their skin, actually.
Okay. And so the next ones we're going to see, they're a bit older. How old?
About 3 to 4 months old. And that one, as you will see, has acquired a brown coloration, which is then it's the color of the algae that they host in their skin.
They host algae inside their skin.
Yeah.
Okay, so well, this gets weirder. So So this is like you having a sort of salad, sort of, you know, underneath your
Under my
skin.
skin.
Yeah. Okay. And why?
Why?
Why would you have a salad under your skin, or this algae in the case of the polyp?
It's a pretty smart strategy because
Okay.
that algae is
Yeah.
capable of capturing sunlight or energy from the sun and making food, sugars out of it.
Ah.
And then the coral can actually benefit from that source of food.
So if you live in the tropics, you need salad under your skin to
You capture energy, you know, that free energy that comes
free
from
energy
the
from
sun.
them. Okay.
And so you can rest a bit more and use less of your tentacles
Yep.
when you have your algae because you
Okay,
already have free
okay.
food.
That sounds pretty cool. So let's see
can set up the other
another one. So I mean, it's just when you come to this, like after you've studied other animals, they seem really strange that you have this animal. But I think, you know, it's sexual reproduction out on the reef
Yes.
to get your baby, and then you bring your baby into the lab. It then, when it's big enough, it then gets a layer of algae, in inside its tissue, and then it clones itself by splitting in half to grow
grow a colony.
its own colony, and it takes.
It can take, it varies between species. Some species
Okay.
grow faster than others, but it can
Yeah.
take sometimes a few weeks and
few weeks.
sometimes a whole year
A whole year.
before
Okay.
they manage to copy themselves.
And I find, and we've got this coming up on screen
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
And so, what should students are looking out for a?
It will be a one polyp, kind of brownish.
One brownish polyp.
I have a
That's
little bit of a hard time because of the
the
sun.
amount of sun that we have today.
Can you sit over
Back.
here? Is that?
So I'll bring this back a bit. It may be easier to see on the camera,
That's good. Yeah.
and then Ellie will be able to help out. And Valerie, you might be able to see on the monitors just inside our production tent. So, as Coral Live, it is live. It is nearly 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the tropics, and so there are the environmental conditions. We want you to be near the water to get a really great sense of this and a great sense of where we are. But Valerie's going to try and point out.
It is in the corner here, but from where I stand, I cannot see anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as you see, that one is a bit fatter, and
Yeah.
again, it's brown.
Yeah.
It's,
And we'll have tentacles as well. It
it
doesn't
has
lose
tentacles. And then the cool thing when they start multiplying
Yes.
is that, because I mentioned earlier, they are slowly they're building their skeleton, so their
Okay.
bones. But when they are multiple polyps,
Yes.
have copied each other,
Yeah.
they share the same skeleton together. So
They share-
they build the skeleton, the hard part together.
So this is a coral skeleton.
Yeah.
This is and so where does this come from?
So this is the inside of a coral colony.
No way.
Yeah.
And so how do they make that?
So they deposit their calcium carbonate. So they slowly build the skeleton, and what you can see, each little round
Yeah.
used to be one coral polyp.
No way.
So in this one you have thousands of coral polyps that have been growing together, building the same skeleton all together.
And so they're basically making underwater cities.
Yeah, I really like to compare coral reefs like that. It's like this buzzing city life, and the corals are building the houses, and it's really comparative to a big city underwater. And then with all the inhabitants they need those corals to actually live.
And so they're creating the 3D structure, and you get all these different shapes and sizes. Is that just, you know, the coral, just the size? Today I feel like being branching or looking like a brain, or is that different animals?
That would be very cool, but it's not the case. They cannot change shape within a day.
Okay.
If they are in an environment where they can start growing a branch, then that will take a few months to a few years, because all of those polyps have to build together that hard skeleton, and that takes a long time.
And the different shapes that you see, is that because of the environmental conditions, or are there different species of coral animal?
It's both. So some species have different morphologies, they look different shapes.
Yep.
But then sometimes if you take one species in a different environment, it will start adjusting how it looks.
Really?
It can be a little bit less branchy, a little bit more platy.
Okay.
If we're close to the water surface, sometimes coral will grow really flat.
Yep.
If you bring them a bit deeper, they start making more branches.
So it really depends on where they are and the different species that they are. And the work that you do, I've got this mushroom tripody thing here. What's this all about? Ellie, where's the best position to get that on? Should I get it on that camera? Do you need it forward a bit, or is it okay there? So what's the mushroom tripody thing all about?
What you see on top is actually a coral colony.
Okay.
So this is all of the brown area.
Yeah.
Is you see there's multiple polyps in it. So this guy is about 4 years old.
4 years?
4 years, yeah. And then each of these darker little spots is where you have tentacles and a mouth. So those are all the polyps. And then you see how they work together to make that nice skeleton.
And then, I mean, you're not growing this as a pet.
No.
So how you've got this tripody thing, not a pet. What happens next?
So the tripody thing, those pointy legs, they're part of a tile or a substrate. And it's basically a transportation means for the baby corals to go from the lab to the reef. Because when baby corals start their life, it's pretty cool. They actually can swim.
Really?
The first stage of their life is that they're a tiny little larva, and it can swim around. And eventually it needs to go to the bottom and attach to something so it can start making its skeleton.
And can that be anything? I noticed there's this tripody thing is pink, and also the tile that you had under the microscope was pink.
Yeah.
Is that on purpose?
It's on purpose. So there's that pink stuff is actually an algae, but it's a good algae. It's a good algae. It's kind of helps cementing the reef. It's encrusting, it's sturdy, it makes for a healthy habitat.
Yep.
And the baby corals, when they are swimming, they actually can recognize the smell of that algae. And they recognize it as a healthy or a good place to attach.
Okay, cool. I mean, you've mentioned that we've got two types of algae, and I think you were referencing a third there. So we've got the algae inside the coral tissue. We've got this red encrusting algae that's a nice place for a coral to live. But I think you sort of almost referenced another kind of algae that wasn't so good.
Yeah, there's a lot of algae that grow on the reef that are really bad for corals in general. Those are the more, we call them the fleshy or turfy algae. They're not as encrusting.
So a bit like the slime you might find on the seafloor.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it can also grow super fast, much faster than corals.
Okay.
It can overgrow them. So imagine you're a tiny coral baby like this.
Yes.
And then there's this massive algae that just like grows over you. Then you very likely will not survive.
And just smothered basically by that. And so you take this, your coral baby who's now coral toddler, 4 years old, and then that goes out with you somewhere
back to the reef. Yeah.
Back to the reef. And so that means why do we need to do this in a lab? What's the problem with the natural environment that corals can't do this by themselves?
So in the natural environment, there are a lot of challenges throughout the cycle of corals.
Okay.
First of all, corals are stuck to the bottom. You know,
Yes.
they have attached, and when they reproduce, they cannot move around to go find a mate. So they have to release their eggs in the water column, and those have to meet.
Got it.
And sometimes that can be difficult because if you have only a few individuals and they're far apart, they might have a hard time to meet for the eggs to meet in the water. So we take those eggs, we bring them in the lab, and we mix them together.
And so it's really helping out because the reef might not be as constant as it may have been in the past. They need that little extra
bit of help.
Extra bit of help.
Yeah.
And that's what you do. Amazing. Really, really great. I think we're going to move on and see if we've got some questions coming through. It's fascinating, so thank you so much. Here we are. Wow. We have from Austin in Texas, we have from Kevin, and Kevin would like to know, why are coral reefs important?
Oh, that's an amazing question, Kevin. Coral reefs can actually help humans in many, many, many ways. The first thing, when we refer to coral reefs as an underwater city,
Yep.
it means that corals are supporting a lot of life underwater.
Okay.
They support a lot of fish, of little crabs, octopuses, so they're really like the basis for life. So that's the first thing.
Amazing.
And then corals are also, because they build those really strong skeletons and structures, they also protect our coasts.
Ah.
Yeah. So when we have storms coming in with big waves,
Yes.
the coral reefs will take the hit for us. If we have a good reef, they will stop that energy, those waves from reaching our houses.
They sound pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So storm protection and supporting huge amounts of life in the ocean.
They provide us with food, all of the reef fish. That's a lot of important source of food for many people around the world. We are making new discoveries of new medication on the
Really?
reef, new molecules that can cure them.
And that's
cure
just
us.
floating around or from different animals that live on the reef?
It can be from different animals, from different organisms on the reef. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So we have this next question. We have a couple of questions. We've got actually from Sarah, also in Austin, Texas. Would like to know how long you have been studying coral for.
Hi, Sarah. For quite a long time, but it didn't feel that way. I've been at university for about 12 years.
Yep.
12 years. But because it's when it's your passion, you have fun all along. So it didn't feel that long.
So there you are, Sarah. Only 12 years. It's probably sort of 8 to 10 years until you reach a sort of a sort of full-time research role. So we're now moving to Baltimore, and Michelle, hi Michelle, would like to know, how can you tell different types of coral apart?
Well, some of them look very different. Most of the time you start by looking at the overall shape. We talked earlier about morphology. Some are branching, others are more rounded, and that gives you already a first indication of which group of corals.
Yep.
And then eventually you have to look at the shape of their polyps. They have different shapes in their polyps. Their tentacles are arranged different ways. So then you close up, you zoom in, and eventually you can tell which species it was.
Amazing. And we're talking about characteristics here. Does genetics ever play a part in identifying different species?
Very much. With the new tools that genetics are offering us, we are discovering more and more species, and sometimes we thought a group of corals was one species.
Really?
And then we use genetics and we discover, it's actually composed of 2 or 3 different species that look alike.
Okay.
That we couldn't tell apart, but with genetics we can start telling them apart.
Very cool. So there you are, Michelle. A few different techniques, both looking at characteristics of the colony, the polyp, and then using genetics as a finer and finer tool. People would like to know, how are you helping reefs and the ocean?
So by growing baby corals,
Yes.
we are increasing, there's 2 different main reasons why we do this work. We are increasing the number of corals that are on the reef. So by growing more corals, we have healthier and happier populations.
Yep.
But the other important thing is that every time we mix those eggs together, we create new individuals.
Okay.
It's like the new children, they're all different from one another, and then hopefully some of them are a bit better equipped to deal with the conditions of today. So we are increasing the diversity on the reef.
Okay, and that diversity within a population, then there's more likelihood of at least some of them surviving. That's really cool. I love this question from Eva. I'm just going to find it again. What is the best and worst part of your job? What's the best part of your job and the worst part of your job? And that's from Eva in Baltimore. Sorry.
Well, the best part of my job is that I get to look at these baby corals all the time. There's many best parts actually. I get to be underwater, right from the beach here, witness beautiful coral reefs.
Yep.
The worst part is to have to worry about corals, right? We have to worry that they will survive. That is definitely the worst part.
Amazing. Very sad to end, but we do all have a role, and we can, as yourself, have a very direct role in creating a future for coral. So thank you very much, Eva, for that question. We're now going to Kingston in Australia, and this is Miss Ashburn's class. and probably compared to Australia, some of these questions may feel a bit sort of tame here in Curacao. But the first one, are there any animals on the reef which are dangerous?
There can be some animals on the reef that can sting you.
Yep.
They can hurt pretty bad. A few weeks ago, I was actually stung by a box jelly here.
Those can be, I mean, certainly box jellies in Australia, some of the different species.
They can be worse, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But most of them are harmless.
Okay.
You know, like sharks are also harmless. You know, most of the time you can just roam around free on the reef and not be worried. You know. Make sure you're not touching things, and then you're
yes.
good.
Exactly. Again, from Ms. Ashburn's class, was wondering what sort of temperature does coral like the best?
They like to live kind of the limits of the temperature they can deal with. So they live around 28, 29 degrees Celsius. Most corals in the tropics, there are exceptions. But then when the water gets above 30 degrees, they start being unhappy.
Okay.
So it's a fine line between the best and the worst temperature.
So, but it's a little bit fussy.
Yeah.
But 28, 29. And then again, the last question from Miss Ashburn's class is, what is your favourite? Are you allowed to have a favourite type of coral?
Oh, that changes every day.
What is today's favourite type of coral?
Today's favourite type of coral is the one I presented at the beginning.
Okay.
The tiny, like 2-3 weeks old corals.
Yeah, the white ones.
Yeah.
And
that's because it's the first time we succeed to grow them as far in their development, and so I just love watching them grow because it's the first for me. So that became my favorite one.
And do we have a name?
We have a name. There's a Latin name which is super complicated, but it's a Stephanosenia intersecta.
Yes,
we can call it the blushing coral.
The blushing coral. And where does it get with that blushing name from?
The blushing name is pretty cool. That coral on the reef, when it grows bigger and bigger, has a kind of a reddish, brownish coloration.
Nice.
And when the little tentacles get a bit frightened, or there's a little water movement around them, they retract. And it makes the coral not blush, but kind of reverse blush, because it turns from red to white.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then back again when it's
back again when they're happier.
When they're happier. So blush is when it's happy.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice. We're going to swing to Canada.
Oh, nice.
We're going to Ottawa. And Bradley would like to know, hi Bradley, how many different species are there on the coral reef?
There's we have about 70 different coral species on the reefs around Curacao.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, for me, what the fascinating thing is that there have been some estimates that up to 9 million species might rely on the reef. And I think coral reefs, I mean, it's an amazing thing is that I think about 60,000 have been described, so scientifically sort of noted down and everything else. But for me, that's 70 coral species, 1,000 coral species in the world, but up to maybe 9 million different species relying on the reef.
Including us.
Including
right?
us.
Very much.
Yes, including us. So, next question, this is from Avery. We've touched on it a little bit before, but we have why are corals so important? And just to ask that.
So corals are really important, again, because they are building our underwater cities. I mentioned earlier how they also protect our shores.
Yep.
They provide millions of people with a source of food and livelihood. You know, they need to go fish and make money.
And the tourism industry, as we've seen here.
Yep. Without coral reefs, we wouldn't have beautiful beaches where people would, fly to your islands and visit your islands.
Exactly. Brilliant. Isabella, this is really sweet. Sorry, I shouldn't say that, but it's a really interesting question. I like it. Hi, Isabella. Can coral feel like we do?
Oh, I think corals have. They're much more complex than we think. They can feel. Actually, can respond to sounds. They can feel vibrations. They can sense light. They can get frightened. Like the emotional difference is definitely there, but they can sense a lot of things in their environment.
Okay. And I remember someone who is recreating the sound of a healthy reef and playing it underwater to bring, I think it's on the Great Barrier Reef, some of that research from Exeter, I think. So really, really interesting to know that all that mixes together.
They're very alive. They're responding to the environment.
Probably. And Sean would like to know, again in Ottawa, hi Sean, what's the rarest coral you have ever seen?
That is a really good question. I wouldn't know. Maybe I just haven't seen it.
But are there coral species here on Curacao that you're feeling are endangered?
There is one that used to be very, very common on
Yep.
Caribbean reefs. We have a team here. You will speak with Pim later this week.
Yes.
We might talk about
Yep.
that species. It's a small species that looks like this a little bit,
Okay.
but it has like really beautiful green strokes in it. And it used to be super abundant, plenty babies on the reef, and now we
Yeah.
find less and less of those. So I guess that will be, when I see one of those, it makes me very happy.
So the stripy green coral, does it have a name?
It's called Helioceres, but I wouldn't know the common name for that one.
Well, is it,
Helioceres.
so it's something to do with the sun, but maybe we can find the common name.
Yeah.
We'll definitely ask Pim on Thursday, and I know he's coming on. We have just 10 minutes left, and we have a great number of live questions coming through on the chat. We're going to get through these sort of rapid fire style, Valerie. So
Sounds good.
we're on here.
I'm ready.
So straight down the camera, we have middle school, Halifax, Canada. Do coral polyps swim?
They start their life as swimmers, and then once they attach, they don't swim anymore.
Excellent. Yvonne would like to know, hi Yvonne, when did you start the restoration work on this sample? So when might this sample go out on the reef?
How old they are before they go
Yeah.
out? That's an excellent question, because many scientists are still trying to figure out the best timing to do that. So we've tried many different things. Usually after 2-3 weeks they go out on the reef.
2-3 weeks, but you've
Yeah.
kept this one till it's 4 years old.
Yeah.
Any reason for that?
We always keep some of the corals in our aquarium system to better study them, also to
Okay.
show them
Yes.
as a display.
Thank you. Brilliant. And can 2 species of coral make babies?
Yes, some species can actually make hybrids, which
Really?
is pretty cool.
But we learn in school science that species, the thing about a species is they can't
can't
have
mate.
yes, and have reproductive offspring.
So we are in the process of investigating some of that. There are 2 species, Elkhorn and Staghorn. They can make a hybrid, and
Okay.
then we are figuring out if it's a sterile hybrid, which means it
Yes.
would have not been
Like a mule?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. But it seems like it's not. So
Oh, interesting. Here we go. Next up we have, can corals spread in the ocean on currents?
yes, when they are at the swimming phase,
Yes?
they can be spread by currents, and that's how we mix different populations and genes together on the reef.
And that's why they're here.
Yeah.
Because, I think someone said the coral started in sort of Southeast Asia in the Coral
Other
Triangle.
side of the planet.
Other side of the planet, but we used to get them
And this
in,
person slowly.
slowly came over to the Caribbean. I read that climate change will wipe out corals. This is from John, obviously a big worry that you see a lot in the news. What can I do to save them?
Well, I think I'm going to turn that question around and say that not all corals will be wiped out by climate change. We have a lot of optimism. There are some corals here on the island, for example, that grow at higher temperatures than normal, and they are doing fine. So we are actually studying those hope stories or hope cases
Yes.
to understand better how they might adapt to climate change.
Brilliant. So, but if you would, there are a lot of corals, however we flip it, there are a lot of corals around the world that are being put under pressure by warming oceans and by the sort of the flip side, the other sort of thing of high carbon in the atmosphere of ocean acidification. From John, can he make a difference at home, or
I
does he
think-
have to come to the reef?
No, I think you can make a big difference from home, and that would be about spreading the word. Talk about corals, study them, learn more, and share with family and friends. Make them fall in love with corals, and then people will care more. You only care about things you know.
Yes, this is brilliant. So we've got to study them, we've got to love them, and we talked about their importance. So not just in terms of the natural world, but their importance to us and to the functioning
Yeah.
of this amazing habitat. And then, you know, if you're far from a reef and you don't have that direct ability, you can support reef restoration work. Or the other things you can do as part of this is to talk about carbon and talk about how that might be a strategy you want to go down, both in your own individual behaviour and in how you might be able to influence your school policies, or even more widely than that. We have Anna. Sorry, we've got massive glare. How many reefs, coral reefs, have you been to?
I have mostly worked in the Caribbean. I've been to, I think, 5 or 6 different Caribbean islands or locations, and I've only been once in Hawaii on a Pacific reef. Oh, in Vietnam as well.
There you
That's
go.
True.
Yes.
Vietnam.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Lots. Union Point Academy. Great to have you with us. How many years do you grow the colonies before you return to the reef? And that seems to be a spread from weeks to years, depending on the species.
Yeah, so the first strategy we tried was to keep corals really long in the aquarium, to kind of nurture them, you know, give them all the best, a lot of food, perfect everything before we put them on the reef. And now we are changing the strategy to kind of give a reality check right away.
Okay.
And then those tiny corals have a few tricks in their pockets, so they can turn around and, you know, survive right away in the ocean.
Pretty cool. Okay, now this is a real test. This is okay. Oxford in the UK. We have a question coming through. How many species of fish live on coral reefs?
Oh, that's hundreds. I don't know exactly the number, but many.
Lots. We're probably close to about 4,000 species of fish on coral reefs. These are hard. It's like being a personal Wikipedia. What kind of coral, for this is from Union Point again, what kind of coral is most abundant in Curacao?
It's a good mix, actually. We have a good mix of different corals. There used to be one that was super abundant, and that's one of our target species. It's called the Elkhorn coral.
Okay.
It used to be dominant in the shallow parts of the reef, making those beautiful branches.
Oh no, they are wonderful.
So we are working hard on putting back a lot of those babies from that species back on the reef.
Cool. Mexico City. We touched on this before, but briefly, what do coral eat?
They can eat little plankton in the water column, so they can catch
tiny shrimp-like creatures, or crustacea, or larvae,
worms.
That kind of perfect. What is the strangest thing you've experienced in the ocean? Strangest thing. I mean, I think the Christmas tree worms have to be pretty strange.
I've seen them release their eggs. It's pretty cool because you know how they are kind of like a spiral?
Yeah.
Well, when they release their eggs, they release them also in a spiral. It's actually, it was really stunning and really beautiful, yeah.
So there you go, spawning Christmas tree worms. There's the strangest, that's pretty, you know, if we want to go for niche, that's there. Mexico City, but we're on. How long did you spend in university to train before you kind of be a full-time scientist? How long?
I spent about 12 years.
12 years training. And how did that broken up?
But the last 5 years were a PhD degree, which means that I was already here in the field doing my work. You know, I wasn't behind.
You weren't doing lectures and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly, I was doing the work.
So how long does the lecture bit last?
That was about 7 years.
7 years. Okay.
3-4 years bachelor's, 2-3 years master's degree.
And then out here.
Yeah.
What universities are best to study coral?
There's a ton of really good ones in the US. There's the University of Amsterdam, which I've been to, has a great marine program. There's a university in Canada, next to the St. Lawrence River, which brought me here. There's Scripps in San Diego. There's a ton of good universities out there for coral research.
And you don't have to study coral for your undergraduate, for your bachelor's. You can do a more general natural sciences degree.
Exactly. You start your bachelor's more into marine biology and oceanography along those lines, and then you specialize in more and more towards corals.
Brilliant. So, do you need to work hard to become a coral scientist at school?
Yeah, you do, but it doesn't feel like you're working that hard because it's amazing.
You need great grades, but if it's your passion, it won't feel like hard work.
Exactly.
Brilliant. And we have time for one more question. Union Point Academy are having a sale to help with reef restoration and doing a local cleanup of a freshwater creek, and that's absolutely amazing. I know you have fantastic teachers there and fantastic students, no doubt. So that is really, really lovely to hear that you're doing that work. Thank you so much, Valerie, for,
You're welcome. Thank you
being part
for
of this.
everyone.
And thank you for not melting, and thank you to the corals for also coping with the heat. Thank you, Ellie. It's been a great first day on Coral Live, and it's been amazing to have all these fantastic questions and have all these classes from around the world join in. I think we've gone all the way from Singapore, Australia and Bhutan in the east, all the way through to Lithuania, Poland, Netherlands, and then Canada, Colombia, Morocco this morning. Exactly. So we've had an amazing number of different classes on board. Do join us for the rest of the week. Tomorrow we are looking at wet labs and the coral ecosystem and food chains and food webs. Moving on to, and we've got a sponge special, I can never quite say that properly, and that's at 10 o'clock local time, and we're on Atlantic Standard Time. It's on the website, so do have a look at that. Unless you ask me anything tomorrow, then we've got some more sponge researchers on Wednesday. We have Thursday, we're going deeper on the reef with Pim. Yeah, so that's going to be really, really cool. And we've got some great footage of him on the reef. We've got Ben doing Asking Anything, and then we've got Kristen.
More coral baby stuff, I think.
More coral babies and adaptation.
Yep.
And then Renee also talking a little bit more about some of the carbon and climate
that's great.
stuff on Friday. Do join us for all that. But for now, it's goodbye from the Coral Reef, goodbye from Kamabi, and thank you so much. Bye-bye.